This week we are talking about albergues. How do they work? What's the process? What do you need to know? Coming right up. So welcome back to Rob's Camino. Apologies for me not looking much like a pilgrim. I'm still at work, but I had a burning desire to make another video, so didn't have time to change. Anyway, the topic this week is albergues. I've had a few people ask on the channel, kind of how does the process work? You know, what happens when you rock up to an albergue? So I'll talk about that this week. I'll go through the general process. Just bear in mind, all albergues are a little bit different, but the general process is much the same. And I'll talk about that general process, and then I'll talk about, if we have time, a few that were a bit out of the ordinary and a little bit different. You know, expect something to be a bit different. Don't turn up to an albergue and say, hang on, Rob said this was going to happen. You know, I'm just talking about the sort of general run-of-the-mill process. Now, I have a confession. I wasn't much of an albergue user up until last year. So if you've been on the channel for a while, you know, I don't know, I lean on that crutch of, oh, but I snore and I don't sleep well and all that kind of stuff to avoid the communal sleeping arrangements. Last year, I thought, Rob, you're being a fraud. Get out there and embrace the albergue experience. So I did, and I stayed in about 20, I think, along the VDLP and the Impiano particularly. So I can now not feel so much like a fraud and share some of those albergue experiences with you. If you're new to albergues, a couple of things to understand. Some you can book and some you can't. If you go on to one of the Camino apps, the guidebooks, my preference is for Gronza. If you're looking in the different towns and villages, you know, you can see all the albergues listed. You'll see how many beds they've got, what they charge. Some, of course, are Donativo, where it's up to you how much you pay. I might do a whole topic on Donativo albergues. And it will also show if you can book or not. And it will tell you what time they open, which is obviously very important to know. So what's the general process? You're either going to book for your next day or something like that, or you're just going to wander in. I think there's a much greater proportion of people who don't book staying at albergues, much more sort of free-spirited and, you know, wanting to let their Camino just unfold without having a schedule. And I stayed in quite a few on my last Camino that I didn't book and just turned up, and it was fine, not a problem. So look at the opening times. I should have made a note of all of these, but generally you're going to find opening times from sort of 12 till 2 o'clock. I've got this mental picture of staying in one, the Guacamo at Rabanal. I think that opened at midday, something like that. If you arrive before the albergue has opened, there'll be a sign on the door generally saying what time they open. Note, exception. Note on door. I'll talk about some exceptions in a moment. So you'll know what time it's going to open. You know, it's kind of up to you whether you hang around, wait in a queue. If it's a particularly busy time, then very often people will wait, and they'll, you know, be quite disciplined about queuing up in the order of arrival. You'll also find sometimes people put their backpacks in line in the order of their arrival, sort of reserving their place in the queue. Up to you whether you want to have that responsibility of leaving your pack. Generally, I'm arriving pretty much after they've opened anyway. So once you've arrived, there'll be you know, an orderly queue. If there's, depending on what route you're on, there might be quite a few people. Some of the ones I've stayed in, I was the only one. So you're basically going to queue up and check in. And the Hospitalero, male, Hospitalera, female, the volunteers basically, there will be generally someone there to check you in. I'll talk about an exception in a minute. And it's a simple process then of showing your credential, your pilgrim passport. They'll generally want to see your actual travel passport. They'll check you in. Quite a lot of albergues, they'll ask you then to take off your footwear in the reception area and leave it there. I mean, quite understandable, you know, if it's wet, muddy weather and things like that, they want to try and keep the place clean. So you may have to take off your footwear at reception. If it's a Donativo albergue, there may be a donation box in reception. This is going to vary a lot It might be at reception, it could be in the dining room. It may have a suggested fee, although traditionally donativos don't suggest a fee. That kind of goes against the whole concept of it. The idea is that you pay what you feel you can afford, what you want to. But sometimes the donativo box will be there. Sometimes people will pay as they're checking in. I generally do. Some people might pay before they leave the next morning. Kind of totally up to you. There's no specific rules around that. So you're going to check in, take off your shoes. You may or may not decide to put money in the donativo box at that point. You may then get a little bit of a tour around the albergue if they're not too busy. And they'll show you where the sleeping area is, where the bathrooms are, where you can wash your clothes, where you can hang out clothes. Maybe there's a common area where you can relax. There might be a kitchen that's available for you to use. Not always, sometimes. There may be a communal meal, and they'll generally tell you at check-in, you know, and would you like to join us at the communal meal? That may be on a donation basis. It may be on a fixed fee basis. Again, it's all sort of fairly variable. So sometimes if there is a meal in the evening, the volunteers, the hospitaleros, will prepare that, and the pilgrims might help prepare the meal. I've certainly done some of those, and that's a lot of fun. Alternatively, sometimes pilgrims will group together and go out shopping and buy some food and cook together, you know, so that's all part of the albergue experience as well. So once you've checked in, you've had a quick look around, you may or may not get allocated a bunk. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes they'll just say, you know, find a bed. So you're going to basically go in, put your stuff down and reserve your bed. You might, for example, unroll your sleeping bag onto your bunk so that people can see that that one is occupied. Do not put your pack on the bunk. That is frowned upon. One of the things that people are trying to avoid in albergues, and the albergues I've stayed in have generally been really clean, they're trying to avoid the transference of bed bugs. It's us pilgrims who bring the bed bugs into the albergues. And one of the ways that we deposit them is from our packs, by putting the packs on the beds. So really avoid putting your pack, definitely, or really too much gear on the bed. So maybe unroll your sleeping bag, you put your pack next to the bed. If there's chairs there, try not to put your packs on the chairs. The chairs there are for general use. Very often the chair might be needed for the person getting into the top bunk. If you don't want to put your pack on the floor, a lot of people carry a little stainless steel S-hook, which you can use to hang your pack clear of the ground on the bunk bed. I certainly use one of those, so that can be a thing there. So once I've got the bed, I have to say, when I'm checking in, just to roll back for a minute, I'll generally have a few questions for the Hospitalero, and that is there a communal meal? Is there a breakfast? And I want to know what times those are so I can sort of plan my day. Is there somewhere to wash clothes? Sometimes, you know, if I've been walking for a while and hand washing my clothes all the time and it's a reasonable sized village or whatever, I might say, is there a laundrette somewhere close by, because maybe I want to go and machine wash some clothes. If they're not providing a meal, I might want to ask if there's a shop nearby where I can buy food, if there's a bar where I can get a lunch or a dinner, you know, that sort of stuff that's handy to ask sort of on the way in before you start getting yourself organised, and I can start getting a schedule for the rest of the day in my head. Obviously, if there's a bit of a queue of people checking in, you know, don't tie up the volunteers too much with all your questions. You can find out later. So I've found my bed space. I'd probably unrolled my sleeping bag. For me, the priority then is a shower. Why? Because I'm carrying very limited clothing. I've basically got two sets of clothing. One I'm walking in, and then I have a clean set. Two sets, two shirts, two pants, underwear, etc., etc. And so at the end of the walking day, I want to get all my walking clothes off so I can wash them. So basically I'm going to go off and shower and come back wearing my clean set. If you're worried about the whole sort of privacy angle in albergues, and I suppose that was nagging at the back of my mind, you know, elderly bloke, who am I going to be in with, you know. I really didn't find it an issue. People are very discreet. There's lots of sort of changing under the covers and, what I generally do, if I'm going for a shower, for example, I'll take my clean hiking pants and shirt with me and my showering, my soap and all the rest of it, towel, always taking my valuables with me. Have I got a little bag here? Yeah. I might just have a tiny little bag like this that I take to the shower. I'm going to put my money in it, my passport, my phone. I can just hang that up in the shower. Never go anywhere without your valuables. So I'll generally be carrying that, some clean clothes, my towel, my soap, whatever. I'll go into the bathroom, I'll undress, have my shower, put my clean clothes back on. I will not wash my dirty clothes in the shower for two reasons. One, it's taking up time in the shower. There might be other people waiting to come. It's also using the hot water, which could be in very short supply. You don't want to be that pilgrim turning up a little bit later and there's no hot water left. So please don't wash your clothes in the shower. So I'm basically coming out of the shower, I'm in my clean clothes, got my valuables, got my dirty clothes, and I will have found out by now where I can wash the clothes. And that's going to vary considerably. There may be some sinks outside where you can get in there and sort of hand scrub your clothes. There may be a washing line where you can hand them out. The Guacamo Albergue in Rabanal had a magic little spinning machine where you could spin dry the clothes. It would get a lot of the water out. So I'm basically going to wash my clothes with whatever facilities are there. It might be the sink in the bathroom. It's more generally going to be a specific clothes washing sink outside. There might be two or three. Sometimes they may have a washing machine and do expect to have to pay for those. If you're paying to wash your clothes, what I've done many times, most times in fact, is if I'm walking with somebody, and so this is kind of an illustration of how you buddy up with people, and how the inhibitions go. You buddy up with people and say, let's share a washing machine. I've done that with married couples, and it kind of all that sensitivity goes out the window. When you're comfortable with the people you're with, and so very often, we'll club together, put all our washing. I mean, what is it? A couple of pairs of pants, a couple of shirts. There's not much of a load anyway. Silly to clog up the washing machine, taking up the time of the washing machine, doing everybody's individually. You might as well do them all together and save money into the bargain. So sometimes there'll be a washing machine. Certainly, I wouldn't expect it. I've come across a couple. So I then generally get the washing done. Those clean clothes are going to get, when they're dry, so they're probably going to dry during the afternoon and evening. My schedule is I'm generally getting in 1 or 2 o'clock. I make sure I get my washing done pretty quick. The clothes are going to be dry within 2 or 3 hours, so I can pack them away in my pack. The clean clothes I'm wearing since I showered are going to be my evening clothes and my walking clothes for the next day. So it's all about sort of minimalism. And then it's going to be a case of probably relax for an hour, have a look around the village, and then whatever I'm doing for lunch, for dinner. I might be on my own, I might be walking with other people and get together with them. It might be a communal meal. You just play it by ear, and whatever your preference is. I've got a couple of notes here just on, we'll finish the process before I talk about these. A couple of really important things when you're staying in an albergue and communal accommodation particularly. Make sure you know what time lights out are, and generally the front door will get locked at a certain time. You can normally expect 9 or 10 o'clock. They need to secure the building at night. Don't worry, I mean, I've heard a couple of horror stories, but you will be able to get out if there's a fire. But generally the building is secure just to stop people wandering in and for security and things like that. And the lights will go out at a certain hour. It could be 9 or 10 o'clock, just make sure you know. After that, it's quiet time. Everybody's tired, they want to sleep. So do respect those around you. Don't be that one who's coming in late, coming in after the door's locked, knocking, trying to get people to wake up to come and let you in, showing lights after lights out and stumbling around, all that kind of stuff. Do respect the rules of the establishment and respect the other pilgrims around you. The same thing goes for in the morning. That was something that did sort of concern me. You know, what time will people be getting up? There's no sort of hard and fast rules about this, but I generally do get up quite early, and I generally start walking before dawn. But for example, if I'm in a fairly full dormitory and no one else is getting up, I'll probably avoid it because I don't want to wake people up. Or at the very least, I would have everything packed, ready to go, so that literally I can just get out of my sleeping bag, pick up my sleeping bag, pick up my pack, tiptoe out of the dormitory to a common area, and out there get dressed and finish packing. So again, it's about respect for the other pilgrims. What else have I got on my notes here? Do be aware that there is a time by which you need to be out of the albergue in the morning. It's extremely hard work for the hospitaleros looking after the albergue. Once you've all left in the morning, they've got to clean the whole place top to bottom. They've got to get ready for the next influx of pilgrims arriving. It's very hard work. They don't want people hanging around, you know, holding up all of that sort of cleaning and tidying up process. So, you know, do make sure you know what time you're expected to leave in the morning. It's probably going to be 8 or 9 o'clock, and make sure you're out on time. So I think that's probably most of the sort of expected behaviours and rules, if you like. I mean, it's all pretty flexible depending on the albergue. I might just mention a couple of ones that were slightly different. If I've missed anything, do feel free to comment down below. What I'll do actually in a video in a couple of weeks' time, Pat and I went earlier this year on the Hospitalero Training. So training to work in a Donativo albergue, which was fascinating. We were hoping to get out onto the Camino this year, but sadly due to family and work and all the rest of it, we haven't. Hopefully we'll do that next year. But I might talk about the Hospitalero Training because that gives you a very different perspective on albergues and how it's all run and what the expectations are. Okay, let me just look at my quick list. I think most of that. Yeah, maybe just on that point about the hospitaleros, do be aware that most of the people you will come across in albergues are volunteers. Very often they might be from the local community, very often they'll be pilgrims who've walked Caminos in the past, and it's their way of sort of giving back to the pilgrim community. Certainly there's some private ones where the owners are running it, but you know, generally people are not working in or running albergues for the money, and mostly they're not getting paid, they're volunteers. So do respect your fellow pilgrims and do respect the work of the hospitaleros, most of whom you will find are amazing people, such generous, warm people, and they really add to your whole Camino experience. So let me talk about, excuse me, having a drink of water. Let me talk about a couple of exceptions to this sort of process. I'm going to come up with some at random here. Alija on the, I think it was called Alija, little village on the Via de la Plata. The only place to stay there was the municipal albergue, which opened at, can't remember, 1 or 2 o'clock. That was an interesting one. We arrived and a local lady who was employed to look after it came around to check us in at the appointed hour. Really great. She gave us a briefing on what was in the village, what was open, where to eat, all that kind of stuff. Told us about the facilities, pointed out that there was some stuff there for breakfast. There was a toaster, there was jam, there was stuff to make coffee. The bit that I missed out on was there was no bread. And so we bought some stuff for breakfast, only to come back later in the day and she had put fresh bread into the kitchen area. But she basically checked us in, showed us around, and then left. And then basically said, look, here's the front door key. Please leave the key inside when you leave in the morning. So, you know, that one, there was no one there to look after you. It was basically to check you in, you know, make sure you knew what was what, and they left you to it. So that one was a little bit different. What other ones? Oh, there was the parochial albergue in Fuenterroble, run by Father Don Blas. That's on the VDLP. That's an amazing place. It's so eclectic. It's sort of a main building, and then it's had bits added on, and there's dormitories of all different sizes. I have to say I had one of the best meals ever. It was a communal meal, you know, donativo. The Hospitalero, this gruff Spanish guy, had cooked up this meal. It was amazing. There was, I don't know, about 15 of us there that night. Really great place. I would almost walk the VDLP to stay there. What are some of the other interesting ones? I should have looked up some of these names. There was another one which is very well known. It's a Donativo albergue, which is adjoined to a homeless centre run by, and when we were there, run by an amazing German hospitalero who spoke about 5 languages fluently. Wonderful communal meal where she welcomed everybody in their own languages. And, you know, that was cool. She was there sort of permanently on site. I mentioned a couple of times the Refuge Guacamole in Rabanal on the Frances. I really wanted to stay there and made an effort to do so on my last Camino. Great place. They're renowned for a couple of things. One, having afternoon tea in the garden, very English. It's run by the Confraternity of St James in the UK, which is a really nice thing. You know, you don't have to participate, but you know, most of the pilgrims will gather together at the appointed hour in the garden, and then we have tea and cakes and chit-chat and get to meet people. And I love that. I got to meet some amazing people that I walked with the following day. And then also opposite the church, there's evensong opposite the church. Opposite the albergue is the church, where I think there's evensong at 7 p.m. With the local monks, and that was an amazing experience too. So there's all these sort of different experiences you can have with albergues. And one that I have to mention is just the other side of Ponferrada on the Camino Invierno is the municipal albergue in Villavieja. And I've got a video on the channel about that. I'll make sure I put a link down below. So many things were unusual about that one. One, there was no staff on site at all. So you had to book, and you had to ring a local council number for the booking. So you need to have, you know, a very basic phrase in Spanish ready. And then what they do is the afternoon that you're arriving, they will text you the code for the front door. And then you go in the front door and you basically help yourself to the whole albergue facilities. You put your donativo amount. In fact, it was a fixed fee. It was €10. You put that in a box. You sign yourself in. You know, it's all sort of self-serve. It was the most incredible albergue. It was the old school teacher's house, which has been beautifully renovated. You imagine this on the side of a mountain, near the top of the mountain, tiny little village where 12 people live, and I didn't see anyone there. There's no shops, no bars, nothing. So they do tell you in advance you have to bring your food with you. So I brought some very basic, lightweight food. Beautiful views. I opened up the windows in the dining area and had these wonderful views. One of the best equipped kitchens I've ever seen in an albergue. It had a washer and dryer. It had sheets, pillowcases, towels, and the best thing ever, I was the only one staying there. I had this complete place to myself. It was an incredible experience. So, you know, whilst I'm talking about the general approach to albergues, and if you're walking a route like the Camino Frances, you know, it's going to follow that sort of general ruling. You're going to rock up, there's going to be loads of people, and it's going to be quite a social and busy sort of thing. On some of the other routes, it can be very different. Alquescar is the one that I was thinking of, the Donativo albergue next to the homeless shelter, Alquescar, on the VDLP. So there we go. I'm in danger of rambling and rambling and rambling. So let me just have a look at my list. Have I covered off all the key things? You know, you're going to check in. You might have to take off your footwear. You're going to find your bed. You're going to kind of reserve your bed by maybe unrolling a sleeping bag. Don't put your pack on the beds. Find where you've got to wash your clothes. You know, respect the other pilgrims staying in the albergue. Respect the hospitaleros and the local community. And you'll have an amazing experience. I didn't stay in a bad one. I stayed in about 20 last time, and they were all great, all very different. Wonderful experience. I'll probably mix it up a bit on my next one. It's nice to have a little bit of privacy now and again. Sometimes there aren't options. You know, on some of the more remote Caminos, you've got this, you've got this. It might be private, it might be albergue or whatever. But it was nice to mix it up, and I really did genuinely enjoy the albergue experiences. So we'll talk about those a bit more in future. You got any questions or comments, suggestions? Do put them in the comments down below. Bye for now.